Commander Talseth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Void Striker, watching the blue-green planet rotate slowly on his holographic display. Kepler 442b looked peaceful from this distance, with its swirling white clouds and single large continent. The human settlement of New Sol appeared as a tiny cluster of lights on the planet's northern hemisphere. "Pathetic," muttered Sub-Commander Kexval, his secondary arms folded behind his back. "Look how small their colony is." "Barely. 50,000 inhabitants according to our scans." Talseth's four eyes studied the tactical readout. His reconnaissance fleet of 12 destroyers had been observing this system for 3 standard weeks. The humans had primitive orbital defenses, a handful of defense satellites that wouldn't last 5 minutes against Imperial plasma cannons. Their ground installations showed basic shield generators, probably salvaged technology from some other species. "Sir," Lieutenant Morden's voice cut through his thoughts. "Incoming transmission from the planet's surface." "Put it through," Talseth ordered, settling back in his command throne. The bridge speakers crackled with static before a human voice emerged, speaking heavily accented Galactic Standard. "This is Colony Leader Park Min-Soo of New Sol Colony. We are aware of your presence in our system. I am transmitting this message to give you one opportunity to withdraw your vessels and leave our space immediately. This is your only warning." The bridge fell silent. Several junior officers exchanged glances, their chitinous faces showing confusion. In 40 years of military service, Talseth had conquered 97 worlds. Never had a prey species warned the Empire to retreat. Sub-Commander Kexval's mandibles clicked in what passed for Vixarian laughter. Did that human just threaten us? A single colony against the might of the Empire? Talseth studied the transmission data. The human's voice had been calm, almost conversational. No fear, no desperation, just a simple statement of fact. Most species begged for mercy or tried to negotiate tribute. This Park Min-Soo spoke like he held all the cards in the game. "Scan their military installations again," Talseth ordered. Full spectrum analysis. The sensor officer, a young Vixarian named Kelthar, worked his controls frantically. "Sir, I'm detecting standard colonial defense systems. Some automated turrets, basic energy shields, nothing that should concern us, but—" He paused, frowning at his readings. "But what?" "There are some unusual energy signatures scattered throughout the colony. I can't identify them. They don't match any known technology in our database." Talseth's primary eyes narrowed. In his experience, unknown technology usually meant trouble, but his orders from Imperial High Command were clear. Expand the Empire's territory in this sector, by any means necessary. The humans controlled 17 star systems with valuable mineral resources. The Empire wanted those resources. "Broadcast our standard terms," he commanded. Communications Officer Vixtal activated the wideband transmitter. The Imperial surrender demand echoed across space in 17 different languages. "Attention inhabitants of Kepler 442b, you are now within the territory of the Vixarian Galactic Empire. Surrender immediately and submit to Imperial authority. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your settlement. You have 6 standard hours to comply." Hours crawled by with no response from the planet's surface. Talseth paced his bridge, watching his tactical display show nothing but silence from New Sol. His fleet maintained position at the edge of the system, weapons powered, but not yet targeting the human colony. "Commander," Sensor Officer Kelthar reported, "I'm detecting unusual activity throughout human space. Multiple ships are moving between their colonies, but they're too far away for detailed scans. Probably evacuating their civilians," Sub-Commander Kexval suggested. "Standard prey behavior when faced with superior force." At precisely 1800 hours Imperial Standard Time, every communication frequency in the sector exploded with activity. Not just from Kepler 442b, but from every human settlement within 50 light-years. The same message broadcast simultaneously from 17 different star systems. "We told you to run. This is your last chance." The voice was different this time. A human female identifying herself as Admiral Kim So-young of the Human Defense Coalition. Talseth had never heard of such an organization. Imperial intelligence had classified humanity as a minor spacefaring species with no significant military capabilities. Admiral? Sub-Commander Kexaval's voice carried a note of uncertainty. Since when do colonists have admirals? Talzeth studied the communication data streaming across his screens. The transmission wasn't coming from just one source. It was a coordinated broadcast involving hundreds of relay stations across human space. That level of organization suggested something far more sophisticated than simple colonial militias. Sir, Communications Officer Vixtal reported, his voice tense. We're receiving thousands of similar transmissions. Human settlements we didn't even know existed are broadcasting the same message. The tactical display updated, showing new contacts appearing throughout the sector. Human ships, previously hidden or disguised, were revealing themselves on long-range sensors. Not cargo vessels or civilian transports, but purpose-built warships with weapon signatures that made Talzeth's scales prickle with unease. How many ships? He asked quietly. Unknown, sir. They're using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors are having difficulty maintaining locks. Talzeth stared at the holographic display, watching red enemy contacts flicker in and out of existence like ghosts. In 40 years of conquest, he had learned to trust his instincts. Every successful predator knew when they were walking into a trap. But Imperial doctrine was clear. The Empire did not retreat from inferior species. All ships, he commanded, his voice steady despite the growing dread in his chest. Advance to attack formation. Begin orbital bombardment of the human colony in 10 minutes. As his fleet moved toward Kepler 442b, Talzeth couldn't shake the memory of Park Min-soo's calm voice delivering that first warning. The human hadn't sounded like someone facing annihilation. He had sounded like someone offering mercy. That thought should have been ridiculous. But as alarms began sounding across his bridge, and his sensors detected dozens of human warships emerging from the asteroid belt behind them, Talzeth realized he had made a terrible mistake. The humans hadn't been asking the Empire to retreat. They had been trying to save Imperial lives. The Imperial dropships descended through New Sol's atmosphere like falling meteors, their heat shields glowing orange against the pale morning sky. Captain Velmore gripped his plasma rifle tighter as his transport shuddered through the cloud layer. Through the viewport, he could see the human colony spread out below, neat rows of prefabricated buildings, agricultural domes, and mining facilities that looked completely ordinary. Remember, he told his assault team over the comm, humans are physically weak but unpredictable. Stay in formation and watch for primitive weapons like projectile firearms. His troops, seasoned veterans of dozens of planetary conquests, checked their equipment one final time. Heavy combat armor, energy shields, plasma weapons, enough firepower to level a city block. Against a colony of 50,000 civilians, it should have been overwhelming force. The dropship touched down in New Sol's central plaza with a thunderous roar. Velmore was first out the hatch, his rifle sweeping the empty streets. Behind him, 40 Imperial soldiers spread out in perfect formation, their sensors scanning for human life signs. The silence was unnerving. No screaming civilians, no desperate pleas for mercy, no signs of panic or evacuation. Just empty buildings with open doors swaying in the breeze. Sensor operator kicks Tal to ground team, crackled the voice from orbit. I'm showing no human life. Signs in the immediate area. Energy readings are strange. There are power sources active throughout the colony, but they don't match standard human technology. Velmore advanced down the main street, his boots echoing off the pavement. The human buildings were simple but well constructed. Reinforced polymer walls, efficient solar collectors, nothing that screamed military installation. Children's toys lay scattered in front yards. Meals sat half-finished on outdoor tables, as if the entire population had simply vanished mid-bite. Sir, reported Sergeant Colvex, motion sensors are picking up movement inside these structures, but thermal scans show nothing. That should have been the first warning sign, but Imperial doctrine emphasized speed and aggression. Hesitation was for prey species. Velmore's squad moved deeper into the colony, passing through residential areas toward what appeared to be the administrative center. The buildings here were larger, with communication arrays and power distribution, systems that hummed with activity despite the apparent abandonment. Private Nextel kicked open the door of what looked like a storage facility. "Clear," he called out, stepping inside. The explosion that followed wasn't nuclear or antimatter. It was something far more primitive and far more devastating. The building didn't just blow up. It disintegrated in a chain reaction that sent debris flying for hundreds of meters. The blast wave knocked Velmore's entire squad to the ground and shattered windows throughout the district. "Next tool," Velmore shouted into his comm, but received only static. Where the storage building had stood moments before, there was now a smoking crater. That's when the second explosion rocked the colony, then the third, then a dozen more in rapid succession. The humans hadn't abandoned New Seoul. They had turned every building into a massive booby trap. Each structure was rigged with explosives that activated when Imperial troops entered specific zones. The timing was perfect, calculated to maximize casualties and psychological impact. "All units, fall back to the dropships," Velmore ordered. But his command was cut short by sniper fire from the surrounding hills. The shots came from weapons that shouldn't have existed. Imperial intelligence had classified human military technology as primitive, chemical propellant weapons with limited range and accuracy. But these projectiles punched through Imperial combat armor like it was made of cloth. "Contact! We have multiple shooters in elevated positions," Sergeant Colvex shouted, diving behind an overturned vehicle as another shot sparked off the pavement beside him. Through his rifle scope, Velmore caught glimpses of the human fighters. They moved with fluid precision through terrain that would challenge even Imperial mountain troops. Their weapons appeared to be modified mining equipment, railguns designed for asteroid excavation, repurposed as sniper rifles with devastating effect. "Lee Hyunwoo, target acquired, firing," came a calm voice over the human communication frequencies. "Choi Min-jung here, covering Sector 7. Imperial squad moving toward your position. Yang Tai-ho, initiating flanking maneuver from the eastern ridge." The humans coordinated their attacks with military precision that spoke of years of training and preparation. This wasn't a panicked defense by desperate colonists. It was a carefully orchestrated battle plan executed by professional soldiers. More. Imperial dropships attempted to land, but human teams armed with shoulder-mounted missiles, clearly repurposed industrial equipment, turned them into flaming wreckage before they could touch ground. The missiles weren't military-grade, but they were effective enough to cripple Imperial aircraft. As night fell over New Seoul, Velmore's assault force found themselves trapped in a nightmare. The colony had become a maze of death traps and sniper nests. Human fighters appeared from underground tunnels, struck with devastating efficiency, then vanished back into hidden passages before Imperial forces could respond. "Captain, we need immediate evacuation," one of his surviving sergeants gasped over the comm. "These humans, they're not fighting to defend their homes, they're hunting us." Velmore pressed himself against the wall of a ruined building, listening to human voices echoing through the darkness. They weren't shouting or panicking like normal defenders. They were calm, professional. Calling out targets and coordinates like this was just another day at the office. "Command, this is Captain Velmore," he reported to the fleet above. "We need full orbital bombardment of this position. The humans have turned their entire colony into a weapons platform." "Negative," came Talseth's reply. "Imperial doctrine. Requires securing intact infrastructure for resource extraction." "Sir, with respect, there is no infrastructure left. They've booby-trapped everything. My entire battalion is pinned down by fewer than 1,000 human fighters, and they're picking us apart." Through his night vision scope, Velmore watched a human team set up what looked like a modified farming tractor. Except this one had been converted into a mobile artillery platform. The improvised cannon fired projectiles that created electromagnetic pulses, disabling Imperial equipment and leaving his troops vulnerable to follow-up attacks. The humans were using their own civilian infrastructure as weapons. Agricultural equipment became mobile artillery. Mining charges became improvised explosives. Even their children's playgrounds had been rigged as defensive positions with overlapping fields of fire. By dawn, less than half of Velmore's original force remained operational. The survivors huddled in their remaining dropships, afraid to venture outside. Every attempt to advance deeper into the colony met with precisely coordinated resistance that seemed to anticipate their every move. "Commander Talseth," Velmore's final report crackled through the static. These aren't colonists, these are soldiers. Professional military personnel who have been preparing for this exact scenario. We walked into the most sophisticated trap I've ever encountered, and we're not getting out without massive reinforcement. But Talseth was discovering that New Sol wasn't unique. Similar reports were flooding in from Imperial assault teams across 3 other human colonies. Empty settlements that became killing fields. Civilians who fought with military precision. Infrastructure converted into weapons of war. Humanity, it seemed, had been preparing for this war long before the Empire ever discovered their existence. President Lim Yon-su stood in the emergency command center beneath Seoul, watching holographic displays show Imperial fleets attacking human colonies across the outer rim. The secure bunker, built 300 meters underground, hummed with activity as military advisors and government officials coordinated humanity's response to an enemy they had been preparing to face for generations. "Madam President," General Park Dong-wook reported, his voice tight with controlled anger, "confirmed Imperial attacks on New Seoul, Haven Colony, and the mining stations at Ross 128. Estimated casualties are in the thousands." Lim's hands trembled as she activated the quantum communication array that would carry her voice to every human settlement across 17 star systems. This moment had been planned for decades, wargamed in secret military exercises, but she had hoped it would never come. "Citizens of the Human Coalition," her voice echoed across space, transmitted by relay stations hidden throughout human territory. As of 0800 Earth Standard Time, the Vixarian Galactic Empire has launched unprovoked attacks against our colonies. Civilian populations have been targeted. Our people are dying. We are now at war. The effect was immediate and devastating to anyone who didn't understand human nature. Within minutes of the broadcast, every human world began a transformation that had been secretly planned for over a century. Protocol Omega wasn't just a military mobilization. It was the complete conversion of human civilization into a war machine. On the agricultural world of Kepler 452b, farmer Kim Tae-hyung watched his automated harvesting equipment transform before his eyes. Hidden manufacturing protocols activated, and the machines that had been collecting grain yesterday were now producing armor plating and ammunition. The genetic modification labs that had been developing disease-resistant crops switched to manufacturing combat stimulants and medical supplies. "Honey," he called to his wife as she supervised their children packing emergency supplies, "the barn's conversion is complete. We're now producing enough military rations to feed a battalion." Chang Soo-jin nodded grimly. Like every human family, they had known this day might come. Their children had been trained in basic combat skills alongside their regular education. Their farm equipment had been designed with dual purposes from the beginning. In the asteroid belt around Wolf 359, mining captain Seo Jun-ho stood on the bridge of his converted freighter, watching his crew install weapon systems with practiced efficiency. The Lucky Strike had been hauling processed metals between colonies just 48 hours ago. Now, massive railgun batteries were being mounted where cargo containers once sat. "Chief Engineer Han Ye-jin," he called across the busy deck, "what's our status?" "Missile launchers are online," she reported, sparks flying from her welding torch as she secured the final mounting brackets. "Point defense systems need another 6 hours. The main gun will be ready for testing in 12. Good enough. We launch in 10 hours with or without the extras." Around them, dozens of other civilian vessels underwent similar transformations. Cargo haulers became missile boats, passenger liners turned into troop transports. Even small personal craft received armor plating and weapon systems that had been manufactured and stockpiled in secret for decades. The transformation wasn't limited to ships and equipment. On every human world, civilians who had been living ordinary lives revealed training and skills that stunned Imperial intelligence analysts. The school teacher on Proxima Centauri B turned out to be a former Special Forces operative. The mining foreman on Tau Ceti A was actually a retired naval commander. The merchant family running a trading post had advanced degrees in military engineering. Humanity had been preparing for interstellar war since their first contact with alien civilizations, 3 centuries earlier. Every human child learned basic combat skills alongside mathematics and literature. Every civilian job had military applications that could be activated within hours. Every piece of infrastructure had been designed with warfare in mind. Admiral Kethvar of the Imperial Navy studied intelligence reports in his flagship's war room, trying to understand what he was seeing. Human resistance wasn't following any known pattern. Instead of massing their forces for traditional battles, they struck everywhere at once with precision that suggested decades of preparation. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported, "we're receiving casualty reports from across the sector. Human forces have destroyed supply convoys at Vega, Altair, and Sirius. They're using converted civilian ships with weapon systems we've never seen before." "Impossible," Kethvar insisted. "Our intelligence reports showed no significant human military industry." "Sir, that appears to have been incomplete. These humans have been hiding their true capabilities. What we thought were mining operations were actually weapons factories. Their agricultural worlds have been producing military supplies. Every civilian facility had secret military functions. The tactical display updated with new contacts as human forces revealed themselves across the galaxy. Ships that had been classified as harmless freighters suddenly appeared on sensors as heavily armed warships. Space stations that seemed to be simple trading posts opened fire with weapons that could destroy Imperial cruisers. On Earth, General Park Dong-wook coordinated the largest military mobilization in human history from the underground command center. "Status report," he demanded. "Outer colonies are fully converted to military production," reported Colonel Oh Min-suk. "Fleet construction is ahead of schedule. We'll have 200 new warships operational within the month." "What about the special projects?" "The stealth fleet is moving into position around Imperial supply lines. Operation Ghost Strike launches in 72 hours. Park nodded grimly. The humans had spent centuries studying every alien species they encountered, learning their tactics, their weaknesses, their psychology. The Vixarian Empire thought they were fighting primitive colonists, but they were actually facing an enemy that had been analyzing Imperial military doctrine for decades. In the Xerion sector, Captain Lee Min-ho's stealth squadron emerged from the asteroid belt, where they had been hiding for weeks. His ships, coated with adaptive camouflage that bent light around their hulls, had been invisible to Imperial sensors. Now they surrounded the Vixarian supply fleet like ghosts materializing from empty space. "All ships, weapons free," he transmitted. "Show them what happens when you attack human civilians." The battle was over in minutes. Imperial ships, designed for conquering primitive worlds, had no defense against human weapons that combined alien technology with human ingenuity. Plasma torpedoes guided by artificial intelligence systems found every weak point in Imperial armor. Railgun projectiles accelerated to near-light speed punched through shields that should have been impenetrable. When it was over, the entire Imperial fleet was debris floating in space. No survivors, no escape pods, no distress signals. The humans had learned from studying alien warfare that mercy was often seen as weakness. They would show the Empire the same consideration the Empire had shown human colonies. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display showing red indicators where Imperial fleets used to be. In just 72 hours, humanity had revealed capabilities that intelligence had never suspected and launched coordinated attacks across a front spanning hundreds of light years. "Get me Emperor Zalthun," he ordered quietly. "Tell him we may have made a serious mistake." But across human space, the war machine was just getting started. On 1,000 worlds, humans were converting their entire civilization into an instrument of war. And unlike every other species the Empire had encountered, humans didn't fight just to defend their territory. They fought to win. Emperor Zalthun's throne room had witnessed the surrender of 1,000 species over 10 millennia, but today it echoed with something unprecedented, the sound of defeat. The massive holographic displays surrounding his crystalline throne showed red indicators spreading across Imperial space like a plague. Each red marker represented a lost fleet, a destroyed garrison, or a strategic position abandoned in retreat. 6 months. The Emperor's voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of unbroken conquest. 6 months since we encountered these humans, and half my navy is space debris. The Strategic Council stood in uncomfortable silence. These were beings who had overseen the conquest of entire galactic arms, reduced proud civilizations to slave labor, and turned thriving worlds into mining operations. Now they shifted nervously under their emperor's gaze, unable to explain how a species that hadn't even existed in their databases a year ago was systematically destroying the mightiest empire in the galaxy. Admiral HFY stepped forward, his once pristine uniform now bearing scorch marks from a human plasma torpedo that had nearly vaporized his flagship. His left arm hung in a regeneration sleeve, another gift from human ingenuity. Your Majesty, we are not fighting a conventional enemy. Human military doctrine appears to be based on principles we cannot understand. Elaborate, Zalthun commanded, his 4 eyes focusing on the Admiral with predatory intensity. HFY activated his personal display, showing tactical recordings from dozens of battles. On Kepler 186F, we cornered a human colony ship, the New Horizon, with 3 of our heavy cruisers. Standard protocol suggests they should have surrendered. Instead, Commander Bei Sujin ordered her ship to ram our dreadnought Void Emperor at maximum velocity. The recording played across the throne room's massive screens. The human colony ship, clearly outgunned and outmatched, suddenly accelerated directly toward the Imperial flagship. The collision wasn't just devastating, it was calculated. The humans had somehow overloaded their fusion reactors at the moment of impact, creating an explosion that vaporized both ships and crippled the 2 remaining Imperial cruisers. She had 3,000 civilians aboard, HFY continued quietly. Families, children, elderly colonists. She killed them all rather than let them be captured. General Vixtal, his scaled hide bearing the battle scars of a dozen campaigns, clicked his mandibles dismissively. Panic response. Inferior species often make irrational decisions when facing superior force. That's what we thought, HFY replied grimly. Until we analyzed the transmission logs. Commander Bei's final words were, all human vessels observe and learn. This is how we deny the enemy victory. Long live humanity. The throne room fell silent, except for the humming of advanced technology and the distant sound of construction as repair crews worked frantically to rebuild the Imperial fleet. Intelligence Chief Morgeth, a spider-like creature, with dozens of sensory organs, scuttled forward on metallic legs. Your Majesty, our psychological warfare division has been completely ineffective against human populations. When we broadcast images of destroyed human colonies to demoralize their forces, they respond by broadcasting footage of our own defeats. Back to us. Show me, the Emperor commanded. The screens shifted to display intercepted human communications. A scarred human female in military uniform stared directly into the camera. To the Vixarian Empire. You want to see destruction? Here's your 7th Fleet burning above Tau Ceti. Here's your invincible dreadnought Deathbringer, being torn apart by human fighters. We have something you don't understand. We get stronger when you hurt us. More footage followed. Human. Civilians, instead of fleeing Imperial bombardments, were converting their homes into weapons. Children as young as 12 were being trained to use improvised explosives. Elderly humans were volunteering for suicide missions against Imperial supply lines. When we offer surrender terms, Morgeth continued, they send us coordinates not for negotiations, but for where we can find their next ambush. On the frontier world of Proxima Centauri B, Captain Park Ji-sung stood in his command bunker, studying the tactical display showing the approaching Imperial 13th Fleet. 300 human defenders against 10,000 Imperial troops, supported by orbital bombardment platforms and atmospheric fighters. Sir, Lieutenant Kim Da-yun reported, Imperial forces will be in weapons range in 6 hours. We could evacuate the civilian population to the underground shelters. Park looked at his young officer, barely 25 years old, but already a veteran of 8 battles against Imperial forces. Lieutenant, do you know what the Empire does to human civilians? Yes, sir. Slave labor in their mining operations. The lucky ones die quickly. Then you understand why evacuation isn't an option. Park activated his command communicator, speaking to every human defender on the planet. "All units, this is command. The 13th Fleet thinks they're going to make this world another Imperial mining operation. They're wrong. We hold this ground, or we make sure they regret taking it." The battle began when Imperial dropships entered Proxima Centauri B's atmosphere. But instead of finding scattered defensive positions, they encountered something unprecedented. An entire planet converted into a weapon. Every mountain had been hollowed out and fitted with railgun batteries. Every valley contained hidden missile silos. The planet's 3 moons had been equipped with mass drivers that could launch projectiles at near light speed. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration of human tactical thinking. The Imperials expected to fight soldiers, but they found themselves fighting an entire world. Farmers with improvised weapons destroyed Imperial aircraft. Children guided smart mines toward enemy positions. Even the planet's wildlife had been genetically modified to carry explosives. Imperial Admiral Kethnov watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by enemies he couldn't even see. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Our sensors show minimal human military presence." "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "they're not using traditional military assets. They've converted their entire civilization into a weapons platform. Every building, every vehicle, every piece of infrastructure has been modified for warfare." The battle raged for 18 hours. When it ended, the Imperial 13th Fleet existed only as debris orbiting the planet. Of the 10,000 Imperial troops, fewer than 100 survived, and they were captured by humans who treated prisoners with cold professional efficiency. Captain Park Ji-sung's final transmission broadcast across both human and Imperial. Frequencies became legendary. "This is Captain Park Ji-sung of the Human Defense Force. Tell Earth we held our ground. Tell the Empire they should have listened to our warnings. Humanity doesn't surrender. We don't retreat. And we don't forgive those who threaten our people." The recording spread through Imperial communication networks like a virus. For the first time in 10,000 years, Imperial soldiers heard something in an enemy's voice that they had never encountered. Absolute certainty of victory, even in death. In his throne room, Emperor Zalthun watched the tactical reports stream in. Battle after battle showed the same pattern. Imperial forces would win initial engagements, only to discover they had walked into carefully prepared traps. Human tactics didn't just aim to defeat enemies, they aimed to completely destroy them as examples to others. "Your Majesty," Admiral Kethavar reported, "morale among our forces is collapsing. Imperial troops are requesting transfers away from the human front. Some are refusing direct orders to engage human positions." For the first time in his 1,000-year reign, Emperor Zalthun felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The Empire had conquered species that were technologically superior, numerically superior, and tactically brilliant, but they had never faced an enemy that simply refused to lose, no matter the cost. Across Imperial space, a new whisper spread through the ranks: fear of humans. The massive human fleet moved through space like hunting wolves. Admiral Jeho stood on the bridge of the flagship, Earth's Vengeance, watching enemy ships flee in panic on his screens. Just months ago, these same aliens had bombarded Earth cities and turned humans into test subjects. Now they ran like scared children. "Sir, we have 17 Velkari destroyers trying to escape through the Kepler corridor," reported the navigation officer. Her fingers danced across holographic controls that humans had reverse-engineered from captured alien technology. Jeho's smile was cold as winter. "Let them run a little. Fear makes prey stupid." The human ships were marvels of rapid engineering. Earth's greatest minds had studied every piece of alien wreckage, every captured weapon, every fragment of enemy armor. In mere months, humanity had leapfrogged centuries of technological development. The ships bristled with plasma cannons that could slice through alien hulls like paper, and their engines burned with the fury of Earth's determination. Captain Yeji commanded the strike squadron, New Soul. Her ship cut through space with deadly grace, hunting down stragglers from the alien retreat. Through her viewscreen, she watched a Velkari cruiser desperately trying to reach the safety of hyperspace. "Not today," she whispered, targeting the alien ship's engines. The plasma burst lit up the darkness. The enemy vessel spun helplessly, its propulsion systems destroyed. But Yeji didn't finish it off immediately. Instead, she opened a communication channel. "This is Captain Yeji of the Human Defense Fleet." Her voice crackled across space. "Your species made one mistake. You thought humans were just another weak civilization to harvest. You forgot to study what happens when you corner a predator." On Aish, alien worlds across the galaxy, the message spread like wildfire. Species that had once considered humans primitive farm animals now locked their doors and strengthened their defenses. The Velkari, the galaxy's most feared hunters, had become the hunted. The chase continued across star systems. Human fleets appeared like ghosts, striking fast and disappearing before enemy reinforcements could arrive. The aliens had superior numbers, but humans fought with something the galaxy had never seen before: righteous fury combined with tactical brilliance. Commander Insuk led the stealth division from her ship, Silent Thunder. Her specialty was psychological warfare. She would decloak her vessels just long enough to destroy one enemy ship, then vanish again. The remaining aliens would spend hours jumping at shadows, never knowing when death would strike. "Fear is our greatest weapon now," she told her crew. "These creatures terrorized our families, turned our cities to glass, experimented on our children. Now they get to experience what real terror feels like." The Velkari tried everything. They sent distress calls to other species, begging for alliance against the human threat. But the galaxy had grown tired of their bullying. Many civilizations quietly celebrated as their former oppressors fled in panic. Some alien commanders attempted to make deals. They offered technology, resources, even entire star systems in exchange for mercy. Admiral Jeho's response was always the same: "Earth is not for sale and neither is justice." The final battle came at the edge of known space. The remaining Velkari fleet, nearly 200 ships strong, made their last stand near a dying star. They fought desperately, knowing their species' survival hung in the balance. But humans had learned more than just technology from their enemies. They had learned patience, strategy, and the art of coordinated warfare. The human fleet moved like a single organism, each ship perfectly positioned to support the others. Captain Yeji's communications rang out across all frequencies as the battle raged. "People of the galaxy, hear this. Earth stands strong. Any species that threatens human worlds will face the same fate as these predators. Humanity protects its own." The space battle was spectacular and terrible. Alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes, while human vessels darted between them like angry hornets. The Velkari's advanced shields crumbled under sustained human fire. Their proud warships became floating debris. As the last enemy vessel prepared to jump to hyperspace, Colonel Insuk made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Instead of destroying it, she let it escape. "Sir, why let them go?" asked her tactical officer. Insuk watched the alien ship disappear into the cosmic void. "Because now they'll spread the word. Every species in the galaxy will know what happens when you threaten Earth. Sometimes the survivor's story is more powerful than complete victory." The human fleet regrouped near the dying star. Around them floated the wreckage of the once mighty Velkari armada. The galaxy's apex predators had been dethroned by the species they had tried to harvest. Admiral Jeho opened a channel to all human ships. "Today we proved something important. Earth isn't just another world to be conquered. We're the new guardians of this galaxy. Any species looking for trouble will find us ready." As news of the victory spread across Earth's colonies and allies, celebrations erupted on thousands of worlds. Humanity had not just survived their first contact with hostile aliens, they had emerged as the galaxy's new apex predators. The universe would never underestimate humans again.